if you have to look on other leaders, right? And it's not that you have to mention a name or something, but I just wanted to know, what have you learned by looking or admire like other leaders within the organizations you've been in? Tough question, I know.
Yeah, this is a good one because I've learned a lot from observing others. That's probably how I've learned the most. So it's hard to narrow it down. I've seen a lot of things that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I've also seen a lot of things that I don't want to do with
Which
my
is
team.
Important, right?
Those are equally important.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But two of the best lessons that I think I've learned are the importance of being adaptable and also being an empathetic leader. I've gotten to watch how leaders have managed and navigated big changes in an organization by being open to new ideas and being flexible in kind of how they approach that. Yeah. I mentioned earlier, I'm not a fan of the status quo. So watching and learning from leaders on how to navigate teams through changes and challenging the way that things work is pretty important. I never like to hear the phrase, "This is how we've always done it."
Oh, right. It's like, you're like, no.
That does not work for me. Yeah. Is the way that we're doing it the best way, or can we improve it? Yeah. So I always want to stay open and adaptable. And then I've also learned that the value of connecting with people on a personal level and kind of understanding their motivations and trying to create that collaborative culture. Because I've observed leaders that have zero empathy. And I've watched their teams just crumble and fall apart. With no respect from either side. So luckily, I've also gotten the flip side of that. I've gotten to watch leaders who have just the right amount of empathy, and the difference in cultures within those two teams is like night and day. So I feel like that's something I've picked up from watching others is you've got to be empathetic.
I'm taking notes if I'm meeting anybody, even, if it's not within the company, right? If I meet somebody, they're saying, "Oh, I just went to my daughter's or my son's something." I'm like, writing down, they have kids, they have a dog, they have, because it's so good to later on, if it's a couple of months later, if it's just within the industry, to say, "Oh, how did that go?" Right? Because people are like, "Oh, you remember," right? And then easier to build on. It means because it means a lot, because it actually means that you listened as well, right? And is that you are human. So I really like that you're saying that's, looking at leaders of what to do and what not to do. It's important. Mm-hmm. I think when I look at my career as well, I can look back and say, "Oh, I know how I reacted at a certain point, and I should not have reacted like that. I should have waited," right? And then the next day I should have come back and saying, "Okay, let's talk about it." So I think being in the hot seat sometimes, you also learn for that. So I've learned as well, just to say, okay, I know what not to do now if I'm in that situation again. So it's, But as you just said, right, we keep learning. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Leadership in Manufacturing podcast. I love that you're listening. Please find us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, and be sure to subscribe and rate us. Also, follow our LinkedIn page and Instagram, and check out leadershipinmanufacturing.com for previous episodes, blog posts, and our newsletter. So let's continue this journey together to become better leaders in the electronics industry. Remember, stay curious, keep learning. See you next time.